What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is Monday, 11:01 a.m. There is no regular UCSS show today because it is Labor Day. And as much as we wanted to fight and try to get a full show today, Tegna said, not so fast, but I just got home from Chicago and figured, you know what? It is Monday of week one of the NFL season. The Cleveland Browns play this Sunday, not 5 Sundays from now, not 4 Sundays from now. They play this Sunday. So it would be sacrilegious not to at least hop on here for 10, 15 minutes, give you my quick thoughts as we approach the start of the 2024 campaign for your Cleveland Browns. We are back in full schedule tomorrow. We have a massive, and I mean massive, massive announcement on the show tomorrow. A surprise I think a lot of you guys are going to very much enjoy, so make sure you tune in for that. But for the next 10, 15 minutes, I'm going to give you a couple of my quick thoughts on the Browns-Cowboys Week 1 matchup on primetime television. We'll get to a couple viewer comments at the very end, but let's get right into it because it is game week, ladies and gentlemen, and that means the Cleveland Browns and the Dallas Cowboys are less than a week away. The wait is over. It feels like ages ago. I'm talking ages ago since the Cleveland Browns took the football field in a meaningful manner against an opponent that wasn't wearing the exact same helmet they were. Screw the preseason, screw training camp, screw joint practices. I'm talking about a real football game with real ramifications, with an outcome that matters, with wagers that matter, with information we can get from said game that matters. And I am so excited to dive into a new season of Browns football, mainly because I am sick and tired of talking about the same things over and over and over again. No one's changing their opinion on Deshaun Watson or Amari Cooper or Myles Garrett over the course of training camp and the offseason. We need new game highlights and stats and plays to break down to give us some new insight into what can and can't be a successful season for the Browns in 2024. The Cowboys are on tap first for the Browns. It is a 4:25 primetime kickoff this Sunday at home against the Cowboys. Tom Brady's making his national TV debut as a broadcaster for this game, which means all eyes across the country will be on the Fox NFL Game of the Week, which is your Cleveland Browns against the Dallas Cowboys. Couple things to watch and monitor. Starting now on 11:03 on Monday morning, till we get to 4:25 on Sunday afternoon. First and foremost is the health and the availability of the Browns' offensive line. Deshaun Watson's obviously number one, but let's talk about things other than Deshaun to start here. Will Jed Wills be able to play? Should Jed Wills play if he is healthy enough to practice this week? If he's not, is Jack Conklin your starting left tackle? We have gotten hints that would be the Browns' plan, but there's no official confirmation from Kevin Stefanski, Deshaun Watson, Jack Conklin, who said, I'll be ready wherever coach wants me to play. And Kevin Stefanski gave his prototypical say something without saying anything at all answer when asked about it last week. So will Jed Wills be ready? And if he's not, what's the Browns' plan B to stop Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, and this Cowboys defense if it's not their prototypical and regular left tackle in Jed Wills? We've seen Jack Conklin play left tackle in the past when he's played and been healthy in the NFL. He's been a successful and frankly, a very high-quality offensive tackle in the NFL. Injuries have been his bugaboo over the last few years, and coming off a serious knee injury last season, it's fair to wonder how ready will he be and how high of a level can he play at on that surgically repaired right knee. It doesn't help that the guy lining up across from him could be Micah Parsons, who, outside of Myles Garrett, could be argued to be the best pass rusher in the entire NFL. Luckily for the Browns, the Cowboys have lost a ton from their pass rush last season that made them so diabolical. They still have Micah Parsons, who's terrific, but they lost Dorrance Armstrong. They lost Dante Fowler. They lost the defensive tackle who went to Washington, whose name is Zigabua or something along those lines. I'm not joking. It's I'll look it up, but it's Zigabua or something like that, who finished with 5 sacks last season. Outside of Parsons, their leading returner in terms of sacks is DeMarcus Lawrence, who's a really good run-stopping defensive end, but at this stage of his career, doesn't provide much pass rush. He only had 4 sacks last season. So they lost their second, their third, and their fourth leading sackers. Is that the right word? Sack totals from last season, meaning Some other guys will step up and have more opportunities. You don't let those guys go unless you feel comfortable in who can replace them on the defensive line. But it's going to be a tough test for the Browns offensive line, and that's going to kind of set the tone, the physicality up front, the Browns' ability to not just protect Deshaun Watson and keep him upright, but to open up running lanes for Deonta Foreman or Jerome Ford or Pierre Strong or whoever's at running back. And I think the winner of this game is going to come down to who wins that particular battle, the Browns' offensive line versus the Cowboys' defensive line. And you can say that about a ton of NFL games. That's not some crazy outside thought, but it's a giant unknown for the Browns versus what should be considered a strength of the Cowboys. And when you get into that kind of situation where you know this unit should be pretty good and this unit has the potential to be good, but it may be a complete flop, we don't know. That's where the game's going to be won and lost. Deshaun Watson, who did not play in the preseason, is expected to take his full workload in practice this week in the lead up to week 1 against the Cowboys. If you think Deshaun's going to be great, sweet. If you think Deshaun's going to be terrible, sweet. There has been nothing we have learned throughout this offseason since he got hurt against Baltimore that should change your opinion one way or another on whether or not Deshaun should be ready to play. I'm going to lead to believe Kevin Stefanski, Deshaun himself, and the rest of the Browns who say he's ready to rock. Rust will not be an issue. He's good to go. He didn't need the preseason. It was a strategic decision to sit him out because he's made so much progress in practice. I'm just going to choose to believe that until I see something else with my own 2 eyes. So fingers crossed we get the best version of Deshaun against the Cowboys in what could be a high-scoring game if both teams' quarterbacks are able to step on the field and start delivering bullets to their weapons from the get-go. The Cowboys can't run the ball, and I think it's going to turn into a one-dimensional offensive attack for the Dallas Cowboys, who had to replace both their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator this offseason. And when you get into a one-dimensional attack against the Browns, that allows guys like Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith and Quentin Jefferson and Shelby Harris and Mo Hurst and Alex Wright and Ogbo, the plethora of pass rushers they have, it allows them to start pinning their ears back and getting uphill even quicker without really the threat of a run game being there to counteract their pass rush. I understand Zeke Elliott is an Ohio State legend, and I know that's Tyvis' boy, but Ezekiel Elliott hasn't been a good and productive and efficient NFL running back in the last presidential campaign or presidential term. It's been like legitimately 4 years since he's been a really good running back in the NFL. Dalvin Cook looked absolutely washed and cooked last year with the Jets. He had that one nice run in the postseason with Baltimore, and people are clamoring to that one run as, oh, maybe he could do something. I ain't buying it. I am not worried about him. The running back that actually scares me the most in the Dallas Cowboys running back room is Turpin, the guy who they drafted Rico Dowdle, who was their third string running back last year. More of a scat back on third down. Turpin's their return guy, who's a really good return guy, but I'm thinking of Rico Dowdle. He at least has the most juice out of any of those guys, but I'm not scared of Rico Dowdle beating me in the run game. And if the Cowboys are able to run the ball down the Browns' throat in this contest, I would be very disappointed in the Browns' defense and, frankly, very surprised at what the Cowboys were able to do offensively. And when you turn into a one-dimensional offense against the Jim Schwartz defense with the caliber of cornerbacks the Browns have and the caliber of pass rushers the Browns have, that starts to sway heavily in the favor of the Browns from a schematic standpoint. And Dak Prescott, who I think is a very good and, frankly, underrated quarterback, he has weapons on the outside. CeeDee Lamb might be the best receiver in the entire NFL. Jake Ferguson, certainly a competent tight end. All those things are great. Brandon Cooks, decent wide receiver too. Like, they have weapons. If Jim Schwartz knows what you're going to do, I like my chances with the Browns defense and a Jim Schwartz leading the charge from a play calling standpoint with the cornerback's ability to slow down. Notice I said slow, not shut down. CeeDee Lamb and Ferguson and all those guys. I like my matchup with that. So I think the Browns focusing on crushing, step on the throat, cut the head off the snake early in terms of the Cowboys run game, force Dallas to be one-dimensional. I think that leans heavily into the Browns' favor as they get ready. Another thing I'm really curious to see, outside of the whole, what does the offense look like? We never really got to see, even in practice, the Browns trio of receivers play together this year. Like, even throughout training camp, I believe it was 3 of 17 practices where all 3 of Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, and Elijah Moore. Don't quote me on 3 of 17. I'm 97% sure it was 3 of 17. It may have been 4. But regardless of 3-4, there were very few practices throughout training camp where all 3 receivers were healthy and available to practice on the same day with Deshaun Watson. And Maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe it is a big deal. We'll find out and see how they look come Sunday, whether they're rusty, whether the timing's off. But I'm really curious to see how Ken Dorsey and Kevin Stefanski plan to utilize the different and unique skill sets of their three big receivers now. And I think when we come back in week 6 or 7 and we say, who are the Browns' 3 top receivers? I think Cedric Tillman will be in that conversation. I think he's going to surpass Elijah Moore on the depth chart and from a production standpoint this year. And frankly, maybe my biggest prediction for the Browns in 2024, I think Cedric Tillman's going to finish second on the team in receiving yards, ahead of Jerry Jeudy, ahead of David Njoku. I'm expecting a giant sophomore year jump from Cedric Tillman. But for now, I'm really curious to see how this offensive staff, it's not Stefanski, it's not Dorsey, it's not Reese, it's not Staley, it's not Dickerson, how that collection, that brain trust comes together to put these guys in different positions to succeed in their own right, because they all have a little bit of a varying skill set at this stage of their careers. Jerry Jeudy is Amari Cooper 6-7 years ago without the production, but the skill set, the route tree, the footwork, the separation, very similar. At this point of his career, Amari is the ultimate separator. It's not going to burn you deep. He can do it, don't get me wrong, but he's not a guy who's a blazer who you're sending on go routes 5-6 times a game and just chucking it up to him like you would with the Tyreek Hill or Jamar Chase. Tillman, much bigger body. You can be a little more physical. Go across the middle in ways I don't think you're going to see Jerry Jeudy and Cooper do all that often. Elijah Moore, more of a underneath guy, a yak guy. You want to get the ball in his hands and see if he can create separation and space after the catch, pick up first downs with his legs as opposed to running 12-yard ins or bang eights. Like, those aren't routes that are necessarily right up his alley like they are for more of a Cedric Tillman or an Amari Cooper. How they utilize and bring that receiving trio, or let's say foursome, because I think Tillman is right in the mix with Elijah Moore to start the season. I do think he'll surpass him. How they utilize each of those guys' individual skill sets against a Dallas secondary that has some big question marks, guys. Deron Bland, who led the NFL in interceptions last year, set the NFL record for pick sixes. He's out for week 1. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. Got hurt the final week of preseason before the game, not in the game. He got hurt during practice, but he's out, not on the field. The Cowboys have Trayvon Diggs coming back, who is coming off a torn ACL. He was terrific. Well, his stats looked terrific 2 years ago. He got burned a ton, but he was an interception machine. Him and Bland play a very similar aggressive style of cornerback where you can get him on pump fakes and double moves, but if you're a half-second late on an out route or a comeback, like, they're going to step in front of it and pick it off. Diggs, the brother of Stephon Diggs, really good player. He's been an All-Pro before. But he's his first game in over a year. What does he look like coming off massive reconstructive knee surgery that held him out of all of 2023? And can a guy who has a surgically repaired knee keep up step for step with the elite route running of Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy? We're going to find out. The Cowboys also had Stephon Gilmore in the backfield, defensive backfield last year. He just signed with Minnesota. So they are about to tout out Trayvon Diggs as one cornerback who hasn't played since 2022. They're about to trot out another starting cornerback whose name is drawing me right now. Let me pull up the Cowboys depth chart because I don't want to lie to you guys. But it's a guy who hasn't had a ton of experience in their defensive system. They have a new defensive coordinator in Mike Zimmer. Their previous defensive coordinator is now the head coach for the Washington Commanders, Dan Quinn. So according to ESPN right now, their depth chart at receiver, at cornerback, Trayvon Diggs, Jordan Lewis is their nickelback who's been around. And then Khalil Carson is set to start as their second cornerback. That is a matchup Deshaun Watson, Kevin Stefanski, David Njoku, Amari Cooper, and company need to try and exploit, because all three of those guys on paper have a significant, let me reemphasize one more time, significant advantage over Khalil Carson, who, by the way, had 4 tackles last season, no pass breakups, no forced fumbles, no interceptions. He's a 5th-round pick coming out of the he's a rookie this year. Those were his preseason stats, 4 tackles. He's a 5th-round rookie this year, and he'll be making his NFL debut against the Browns this Sunday. So, yeah, that's a matchup I think the Browns need to look to exploit early and often in this contest to have sustained success, because just like I think Dallas's run game is going to struggle, I don't have a ton of faith in the Browns' run game early on. I think it's going to be a new offensive system. They're going to throw the ball a lot more than we've ever seen. I don't love Jerome Ford. I don't love Deonta Foreman. They're both fine. They're both okay. If they're your second backs, great. But as lead backs, I don't know how much I love it. And with the questions at the offensive line for the Browns, especially when you're shuffling guys around, Conklin's going to be so focused on pass protection. How's his run blocking going to be? DeJuan Jones he had his ups and downs as a rookie, has potential through the damn roof, but he's not a dominant run blocker yet. The interior of the line, much better. But then you have Jerome Ford, who likes to tiptoe and tap dance in the backfield. You have Foreman, who, if you need 6 yards, he'll get you 3 yards. If you need 1 yard, he'll get you 3 yards. I think it's going to be a pass-happy game for both teams in this contest, and that comes down back to the offensive line. But luckily for the Browns, in terms of attacking the Cowboys secondary, I feel a lot more confident in the Browns secondary shutting down the Cowboys passing attack than I do in the Dallas secondary being able to shut down the Browns passing attack, assuming, that's the biggest assumption, Deshaun Watson and company are ready to rock to start the game. Last thing I want to mention before I read some comments and we wrap this up. Like I said, we are back in full force on UCSS tomorrow. It is Labor Day. It's a company holiday. Tegna said no show. If you guys remember back in January, we had to fight to have a show after the Browns playoff game. And we said, there's no way we can't have a show, even though it's a company holiday. We got to be on. So that's why we missed the day earlier this summer. It's not our decision. Trust us. We all want to be here talking Browns because we've talked hypotheticals for 6 months. We want to talk real football, which we finally have in front of us. But we are back with a giant announcement tomorrow on the show. So make sure you guys tune in at 11 o'clock. Bull also did an Ultimate Guardian show earlier this morning to check out. Last thought on the Browns-Cowboys matchup before I read some of these comments here. The Cowboys had the best home record in football last year at 8-0. The Browns had the best home record in the AFC last year at 8-1. We have talked about the importance of starting hot for the Cleveland Browns this season because of how backloaded the schedule is. You can make the argument, and it's before the season. Teams can change. This is based off the information we have. The first 5-game stretch of the season for the Browns might be their easiest 5-game stretch on paper of any point in the season. This Cowboys game is their most difficult matchup on paper out of the first 5. But it's coming at home in front of the dog pound to start the season. I know I'm not a Cleveland native through and through. I know I've only been here since 2022. The way Cleveland is on game days, particularly home game days, is special. And there's something in the air that's not tangible. I can't put my finger on it. I can't even truly describe it without someone having experienced it before to understand. But it's no fluke that the Browns went 8-1 at home last year. And it's no fluke that even when Deshaun went out and then DTR went out and then Flacco comes in, they played their best game of the season against the Jets at home, right down the street at Cleveland Browns Stadium in Week 17 to clinch a playoff spot. The home crowd is infectious to the team. And with everything going on throughout this offseason, all the question marks, it feels like the vibes around this team in this city are slightly lower now than they were 3 months ago. I think that all changes come Sunday. And it'll change and it'll ramp up throughout the week. But I fully expect with a 4:25 kickoff, with Tom Brady on the call, with the Dallas freaking Cowboys in town, going up against the Cleveland Browns, team that has Super Bowl aspirations, that has a Super Bowl roster, that the difference in this game could genuinely be the 60-plus thousand people who packed Cleveland Browns Stadium. I'm pointing this way because the stadium's right down that street. The 60,000-plus fans that packed that stadium and go absolutely effing bonkers for 3.5 hours on Sunday afternoon into the early evening to propel and will this team to a victory. I'm more familiar with home field advantage in the college ranks. I've been to almost every SEC stadium with my last job working for A&M. Playing at home versus on the road is a completely different monster. And in college, it's even more difficult because the lack of communication and the lack of headsets and different rules, different things, 18-year-old kids, yada, yada, yada. On Sundays in downtown Cleveland, that's an SEC atmosphere. And I can tell you as someone who lived in Texas and has been to a bunch of Cowboys games, I hate the Cowboys for the record. I can't stand them. They're my least favorite team in football. It ain't like that down there. Now, their fans are crazy in their own right, but in a different way. And I'm not 100% sure with all the pressure on the Cowboys this season, with the Dak contract situation and the Micah Parsons contract situation and Mike McCarthy being on the hot seat entering the season and all the drama that is surrounding the Cowboys to start 2024, I think it's going to be a rude awakening when they walk into Brown Stadium and see the intensity at which these fans bring. And I'm not making my picks yet, and I've gone back and forth on this game a ton, and I'm not going to give my official pick till Friday on the show when we do our first headlines of the season. But I'm telling you, the biggest difference in this game, And the biggest advantage for the Browns might very well be the 60,000 plus fans in the stadium. We also mentioned Micah Parsons against Jack Conklin. Bad job out of me. The Cowboys are starting a rookie at left tackle. Could you imagine you're welcome to the NFL game and Mike McCarthy being like, hey, Tyler Guyton, you're a first-round pick. We have high hopes for you. You got giant expectations for your career, but your first game of the season, you got to block the reigning defensive player of the year, Myles Garrett. Like, good luck, buddy. It could be an absolute catastrophe and a bloodbath if they don't chip and double and send protections and slide the line over to Myles' side going up against the rookie. I don't care how good Tyler Guyton might be. He ain't on Myles Garrett's level yet and probably never will be. So that could also be a bloodbath. It's not just the Browns who are dealing with offensive line issues. Going to read a couple comments here just to wrap it up. Happy Labor Day to everyone out there. I appreciate that. Zach Huffman with the super chat. Finally, game week Nuggets. Let's go. It doesn't matter if Jed's ready or not. Listen, Jed is not great. Jed is better than I think a lot of us give him credit for. I think he's an average left tackle. And the difference between average and below average is catastrophic. He is not good. I am not saying he's top 10, but it could be way worse if he's not in there and whoever they have isn't that good. Excuse me. Let's see. Tillman more yards than Judah. Yeah, listen, I've already bet on FanDuel. If you're going to gamble responsibly, use the FanDuel Sportsbook. I have every over on the Cedric Tillman prop possible. I'm telling you, I think last year it wasn't a physical issue. It was a mental issue. Now I think he's in a better system to utilize his skill set. And yeah, I am fully on board with the Cedric Tillman. Let's see. Tommy says we need to be 5-0 or 4-1 out the gate. Definitely need a hot start if they're going to make a deep playoff run. And last one, let's see. Jarrett says the Guards get a win in Kansas City today. Hey, the way Alex Cobb lost his perfect game yesterday. First off, shout out to Alex Cobb. Shout out to Cobb. That was objectively the funniest way you could possibly lose a perfect game. Off the shin, fall flat on your face. Like, they won. Awesome game. Big win. Needed that series win. So yeah, I think they got a shot. This series against Kansas City is massive. They lost 3 or 4 to the Royals when they were here in Cleveland. I think, what's the division lead at now? I was in Chicago all weekend. I'll be honest. I was following without fully following. It's 3.5 over Minnesota and KC. This is for KC's season right now. So yeah, I do think they win today. Who's the pitching matchup? Should be. Wait, before I say, let me check the pitching matchup. Hold on, I'm pulling it up right now. Pitching matchup today is Gavin Williams versus Michael Wacha. Wacha pitched pretty well against them last time. Yeah, give me Gavin Williams due for a bounce back. And last but not least, Sean Holt said, did the Browns re-sign Foreman? Yes, they did. They did re-sign Foreman. He is officially back in Cleveland. He was brought back after the team waived Tyler Huntley. We are back tomorrow. Full show. Big announcement. Appreciate you guys tuning in. And it is game week. Game week is finally here. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Peace.